Now, because I was actually talking to somebody just not so long ago about it who wrote to me like, oh, I'm getting a lot of like reports like this. I was just talking about a relationship where, like, first thing when it comes to communication, communication is a problem overall, and it's also the number one reason why relationships often fail. Né? So, but when it comes to then sexual relationships, then that's a bigger problem, or the biggest problem ever. So, I've been having clients who somehow they found themselves in a situation where they were just making love normally, and then they were penetrated anally without the consent. So it's kind of like a conflict in that board where part of them kind of like, oh, but I like this, and a part of them, it has been violated and solved a certain way. So that's what has been up lately in the world.
I kind of like that idea. It's very fascinating because it's not something that you delve into very much. I also it kind of feels like almost like it's a trauma response because I can tell you from my own personal experience, I haven't been in many relationships and I was in one relationship that lasted a month and a half. And the more I think about it now, I did not want to be sexually active with my partner. It traumatized me and caused me to be more anxious and scared than was expected. So it's a it's an interesting point because you don't always put yourself in that predicament because you sometimes will go to the thought pattern of, oh well, this is normal. I'm just feeling this way because, and you try to rationalize it in your
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. That's the thing. Or another thing, you can even have a conversation about it with maybe your friends, or they can just laugh about it. Some will be totally against whatever. Some will just make fun out of it from, I'll say, not the connected perspective. Where it's kind of like, come on, what do you mean you don't wanna be intimate with your partner? It's kind of like you are sort of like a coward kind of thing. And I look back at it again to even think, when you look back, especially even as teenagers, the first time you start being in relationships or being intimate, often you realize that it's not like you wanted to, but it was kind of like something that is in fashion. Oh, I broke my virginity, and it's kind of like, how does that look like? So you want to be part of, not
You,
necessarily
you
that
don't even take a
you
second thought to it. You just rush yourself right into it.
exactly, especially that there's a certain kind of like the society has this thing that, or whether it's a society or even like teenagers that at this age you should have slept with somebody. It's kind of like, oh, you've never done that? Oh my God. Like, it's kind of like you are stupid or something like that. You are not, so you judge yourself, or even if you've done it, you still keep it a secret. I still remember one, she was my client, but she just, I knew her like for a long time. But then she just admitted to me, like, when we were working together now, to say, you know what? I used to lie that I had boyfriends and all that, but I didn't. My husband was the first guy that I ever slept with. And I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, girl, how when you look at the whole thing, it's kind of like sometimes you end up doing things because you're thinking that other people are doing it, but they're not. Other times you just do things because you want to fit in. And the funny part is, even as adults, especially, let me say you're in a relationship or you're married, when it comes to things that you don't want to do, even when you don't feel like it, you end up just doing it because I'm married, not necessarily that your body said you want to do it. So it's traumatizing the body, because like I have to, if I don't, maybe my partner will step out
Right.
and be with somebody else. It's all fear talking. It's all so it's like this is it's a huge thing.
It's also putting it in the perspective of as human beings, and as us being individuals. This is kind of a thing that kind of fucks with your brain a little bit because the way you see the world is not how another person sees the world. The way that you see blue is not the same way another person sees blue. The way that you see sex is not the same way. And I have had this conversation where people are like, oh, yeah, we understand sex on the same level. No, you don't. It's impossible. Every single person has their own interpretation of what the world is. And it's kind of like you're almost playing a game of guess who to like
Yeah,
kind of line up what you're seeing with the other person. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Right?
yeah. And that's because when it gets to, and I wish that we can be taught this even at school to understand that. Let me just go back to me as somebody who works with people and helping people to break free from generational influence parents and all that. When I look at it, there are imprints that we have inherited, whether it's sexually, financially, relationship wise, spiritually, and all that. So definitely these are influencing our perception in the world, right? And then we go out there having this illusion that it's kind of like the same for everyone, but it's not.
No, it's not. And it's really it's really hard because we look at this through a very simplistic lens, that there's a one way fits all solution. And I feel that's very far from the truth. I feel that we're looking at a very complex problem with a very simple answer. That's the
Yeah.
issue that people are running into. And it's not that people don't want to have sexual relationship with other people. It's not that people don't want to have children anymore. It's that you have put people in very difficult predicaments where they've seen a lot of traumatizing things. They've been aware to their traumas and issues that they're dealing with, such as life, family issues, partners, friends. The list just goes on.
Yeah.
What is the right approach? What is the right direction people should be taking? I don't know even if that's the right questions to be asking.
Yeah, but I love the question because the right approach, there's no wrong or right, but on the other hand, the aligned approach, I would call it aligned approach, is the one that is in alignment with who you are. This is why it's very important that we get to know ourselves, right? And I still remember I had a client not so long ago who says, I don't want to have children. Like, that's where she stood. And I respect that, but I was just like curious. I wanted to understand, you know, where's this coming from? Because it's another thing when you are making decisions from this is where I stand, I don't want to have children, and making decisions from I'm afraid of the trauma that I experienced. This is what I saw, and I don't want to either do that to my children or
Right.
whatever. So often you realize that sometimes, often it's because of the trauma that people went through. And I still remember because I'm somebody who I didn't want to have children, but it's not like I didn't want to have children. It's quite interesting because I had children at an earlier age, even though when I was young I kept on saying I will never have children. But it was my inner child that was speaking that felt like it's just too much. There's so many children around here, and I felt like I'm not even seen, I'm not even loved. So it's kind of like I don't even understand the purpose of having so many children and all that because it was us and then my sister's children and all that. So I felt like this is too much, So I didn't want to have children.
Yeah.
So when we dug deeper, I realized that it's not like she doesn't want to have children, but she doesn't want the same thing that happened where her parents had children, and then she was the first one, and other children had some disabilities. That meant all the attention were given to these other children. And with her, like you have to understand because your brother, because your sister, And then along the way, because of also when I look at it, the core of her disease is because she was not given love. Kind of like I'm gonna also create something because the body is intelligent. I'm also gonna create something that will give me attention, but at the same time, she's not able to get that attention. You understand? So anything
Yeah.
that we also create from limitation, lack, scarcity, fear, it's not gonna change the circumstances. The only way is loving ourselves, accepting ourselves, knowing who we are. For us, not looking outside, and it's quite interesting because I come across adults maybe in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 40s, even, but still there is that resistance. My mother should have. Sometimes I remember one woman who just told me that, oh, I've healed. My mother would not have any wound anymore. And then we continued to have a conversation, and she said, when that woman died, I was the happiest woman. I was happy that she's dead. The things that she has not healed. Because if you did, the inner child of yours that wanted love from that parent should at least have had compassion. And funny enough, when we even dug deep, I realized that the relationships that she had with her mother are the same relationship that she has with her children. because it still goes on and on until someone is willing to say, no, I'm willing to look at this, you know. So
Yeah.
the main thing is knowing who you are and doing what is in alignment with you. And like when it comes to the healing part, the first thing that I focus on when I'm working with somebody is disconnecting from the old template that you were born into, because at times you do it unconsciously. You don't even know what is dictating who you are. Whether it's in business, sometimes you may be held back and it's kind of like, no one sees me, no one wants what I have. But at the core of it is because there are some templates that are holding you back to say, this is who you are, this is how it is in our family, this is how you get to do things in our tribe and all that. So
Right.
all the templates are limiting, even when it comes to relationship blueprints. You may be struggling with relationship, but the relationship that you are creating from is a relationship that you inherited, or even the health and all these things. Where when you look at it like the epigenetics and all that, science has also proven that, and these are the things that are running our life. So when you disconnect and connect with the unique to nature blueprint, you get to do what is coming from here. What turns you on? Like when it comes to life, I feel like when you are driven by which is inspiration. What is it that turns me on? By that desire that is unique for you, not because I'm going to be validated or accepted by my parent, family, society, or whatever.
Right. I think it's also very interesting because you mentioned inner child, and very much we as adults are shaped by our childhood and our parents and our siblings and the environments that we're raised around. And you can see that people that are traumatized, that were abused mentally and a lot of times physically, are sometimes some of the greatest people you'll ever meet. They grow up to be social workers, nurses, artists, creators. The list just goes on. These people will even go to make their own families and do completely the opposite of what their parents do. Why is this? I think that there's a part of us where we don't realize that our inner child is not our enemy. It's
Mm.
it's basically like our spark plug for our engine. It feeds us to be able to say, I want to do this because this inspires me. This makes me want to move on to the next day, and start that next chapter. It's all about, I feel, taking the approach and not using your past as an excuse. Because the second you do that, if you use your past, you can use everything as an excuse. You can say
Yeah,
that because it rained today and your car slipped, that's the reason why you were late, and this is the reason why everything failed, and this is why everything didn't work. It's all about the approaches you're going to take and how you view those things.
absolutely. I love that. It's the choices that we're making in every moment. And coming back to the inner child comes or works against us when we are not willing to embrace and acknowledge
Hmm.
pain and all that is going through. Because if at all your parents have not been present for you, and a part of you felt abandoned, rejected, not enough, and all the things, and then you grow up as well, and you kind of like, because often where there is pain, people who are, even when you look at the people who, whether we call them bad or whatever, or people who end up just coping with addictions, drugs, and all food and all that, it's still part of trying to suppress the pain that is there, But when they embrace, when you look through the pain, acknowledge it, that he is present and be willing to look through it, it changes everything. But if you don't want to look at it, which often people think that that's the best way, then this inner child becomes kind of like sabotages, but it's not like it's sabotaging, it's crying for attention. I want your attention. Can you please see me? But you are busy looking outside to say, oh, my mother this, my father this, blaming everybody. What you're doing, because your attention is outside, you are doing to
Right.
you what was done. You are doing to you what was done to you. You are doing to your inner child what was done to you. So you are not different from the people that you are blaming, right? But when you acknowledge this inner child and hear it out and assure it that I didn't know any better and I was a child and now I'm an adult, so I'm willing to parent myself. Because when you look at healing, this is what it is. We're going to treat ourselves better than the past did. We're going to love ourselves than we were loved. We're gonna be present for ourselves and hear ourselves out than
All about the artist. That is the whole purpose of this podcast, period. And you have a really valuable tool. You can share this with artists, people that are creative, someone that can enjoy this podcast and really enjoy the experience of Lost in the Groove. So, with that, let's jump back to today's episode, shall we?
whatever that happens. That's healing, you know. So when you do that, then you can go through life creating together, listening to each other, being one with each other, you know. Because all the
Yeah.
sabotages, procrastinations, and all that is you working against you, and especially when it comes to relationships, the the feminine and the masculine. It's still the conflict that is within us, and then it's playing out in relationship where it's kind of like, oh, that man, that woman, whatever. But on the other hand, the conflict that we get to look at it within us, when that is corrected, resolved, then you can have harmony with somebody outside of you.
Yeah, it's also being able to have, I feel, an open point. You know, I have a good friend of mine. We were talking about this yesterday, and this just comes to mind. Where she's been in the medical industry for years. She kind of has been practicing different things here and there. She has like a nursing degree, and she was one of those people that were there on 9/11. She was one of
Mm-hmm.
those people that were helping out, and she lost a lot of people that day that were in the towers. And for her to be in a predicament where she saw kids not having anywhere to go, and now where she's experiencing where she doesn't have her own kids because her kids have been taken away by her ex, and her still being able to be strong. But you know, to understand where she comes from, where she knows what it is for kids not to have parents, she knows what it is for there being no funeral, there being no chance of any type of mourning or anything of the sorts. And to kind of experience that almost 20, 24 years later in her own personal life, yes, it's not death, but that is traumatizing. That leaves a mark on you. The question is that how are we willing to take it? You know, because I have no idea what it's like to experience what she's experienced. But here she is, 47 years old, and she's doing it. How is she doing it? I don't know. But she's doing it.
Yeah, that's I mean that's my personal experience as well. And you know, I love that you give an example about something where the parents never got a chance to see that children again. And
No.
because honestly speaking, people who
You
have
know, a
not
lot of
been
people.
experienced.
You know, a lot of people didn't know that. By the way, that there was a daycare center in the World Trade Center. So they were at the like ground level floor. So you're talking about dozens of kids. Their parents were on the 98th floor, the
Yeah,
89th floor, the 84th floor. You know, she even saying that like even a few days after the incident, there were kids that were just waiting. There was nobody there to pick them up. That definitely has an effect on you and really changes the way you look at not only the value of life, but our interaction as people
yeah,
and how
yeah,
important it is.
yeah.
Sorry.
And what is coming to mind? Like first thing is when you go into the situation with the children, they're alive, but she can't be with them. She can't be the mother that she desires to be.
She can't be right.
It feels like death. Like in reality, it's kind of like you are mourning. It's like your child is dead, you know, and that's like the pain that is there, and it's also different in the sense that they are not dead, they are alive, but at the same time, it's kind of like if they were dead, maybe there was a way that I could sort of have closure, you know. So it's confusion, it's a conflict that is happening, and it also comes back to you as a woman again, or even because I know that men who are also going through this, where But for a woman, I would say it's a different kind of pain because this is a child that started in your womb. The connection started before even that child was born. You understand? So, and for a woman, we have been taught that children are our life. It's also something that determines whether you're a woman or not. I come from a culture, as an African, where back in the days women were divorced or if they were somehow forced to accept the second wife just because a woman could not have children, you know. So it's also one of the things that esteems women, I would say globally. This is just a thing where someone is proud, oh, I've got their children and all that. So for you to be able to experience that pride of giving birth to this life and raising it, and then sometimes in life you get separated with this child, you feel like a part of you is dead, and there is also a part of you that, whether it's conscious or unconscious, there is shame. And I know I still remember even at times when I shared with people my experiences. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, they were just talking from whatever talking, but it's kind of like, I don't know if I'd be alive if it all that happened to me. Like, that's true. But on the other hand, when you are going through that, you get to a point where you can just question yourself and be like, am I not loving enough for me to be alive? And one experience that is coming to mind is even going through wherever you go, no matter how beautiful it is, you don't want to, you can't just bring yourself to enjoy life because you feel like, if my children were here, this is what they would be experiencing. It's kind of like, who am I to be happy if my children can be here? I don't know if they're happy or not. But at the core of it, going through that experience, at the core of it, I still remember when I was just led to write and I started writing, and the message that came through was, who are you? Who are you without your parents, your mother, your father, your religion, your your job, your house, and at the end it was, who are you without your children, right? And that made me stop because at that moment I felt kind of like naked already. But when this question came through, I stopped and I started crying. But who am I? You know, and I was just told that you think that the children belong to you because I had a lot of anger and there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of denial of even what was happening. But the message was, you think the children belong to you, but they don't. They are on that path, they are on that mission. Are you willing to find your path, your soul mission? So for me, that's a lesson that came through to say, and I still remember the time when I grounded more in gratitude, the grace of the 7 years that I raised my son, the 5 years that I raised my daughter, because my daughter was 5. And there are people who are just like that. Actually, we have a lot of people who are hurting and they will do whatever that they get to do for them to sort of like cause you that pain. It's kind of like it's something that is because they know that a child to a woman, they know what it means. So for me to get to you, I get to take your children from you to show you that you are nothing. Kind of like to tone your power down, because a man who is not in his masculine, in his sacred masculine, who is not in his power, is the only person who can do that. Otherwise, no matter what is happening, even if the circumstances were different, where the other person is maybe an addict or whatever, the man who is embodying his sacred masculine will say, I'll be with my children because these are the reasons. Yes, I know that they're better off with me, but still will find a way that the parents get to have access, even in their whatever stage that they're in, whether it's in the addiction stage and all that. But we find that many women who are capable of living, who are capable, they have their women, their children taken away. Unfortunately, we live in a world where even when it comes to the judicial system, there is all this corruption and a lot of things that happen. But often we make it about ourselves first, where it's kind of like shame, maybe like other people. The truth be told, when I go out and tell people that I'm not with my children, they don't they don't sympathize with me like when somebody says my child died. They raise their eyebrows like, what did she do? It's kind of like something is wrong with you. You might have done something that shouldn't have happened. I've had that being told to me in several occasions, but it's
Yeah.
not always the case. So the most important thing is holding ourselves in compassion, and also even when it comes to parenthood, the message that I got mostly was when I was actually angry. I was like, what's the point of having children if I can't mother them? And the message that came through strongly was, what if you get to be the one who gets to hold the light even when the children are not present? Because mothering doesn't mean you get to be with the children in physical form. They can be wherever that they are. Because I've got a situation where when something is happening, I know it. I can feel it when my child is in darkness. And I get to be where I am and connect with them and bring the light in the place that they're in. You understand? So it's being a mother beyond the physical body. And even when I'm connected with the earth was what the earth shared with me was like, this is the pain that I go through as a mother, because we have that mother connection with this planet that we are in. And she desires for us to also wake up and connect with on a deeper level. But often we are not even aware of her presence, yet we are in her in her world. You understand? So it's kind of like she's holding space of love, still supporting us, even though we may not be aware of her presence or not even honor her presence. So it's still the same level of parenting where you get to evolve beyond the physical form and hold that light. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the truth always comes out. But on the other hand, the connection of a mother is not limited by the physical presence. It's a connection that goes beyond. Because on the other hand, they will end up growing as well, becoming older people. But still, you get to be a
Yeah.
parent even when they are older, right?
It's it's strange that, kids don't stay with their parents forever. I mean, now with the housing prices and the insane cost of rent here in the United States, people don't really have a choice but to stay with their parents for a substantial amount of time. Um, but generally speaking, you're right. Kids don't stay with their. You stay with your parents for a certain amount of time, and then you move out and you make your
Yeah,
own life.
yeah,
But there's that also twist of the side where predominantly when it comes to men, and this doesn't apply across the charts, but there's this dominating feeling, this almost dominating effect when it comes to heterosexual relationships pertaining to females and males when you have children, where you'll have males, especially when it comes to divorce or breakup, it's almost like payback. Like, as sadistic and narcissistic as it sounds, there are men that, oh, because you divorced me, because you left me, because you did this, I'm going to punish you. I'm going to punish you and your kids. I'm going to make you miserable. In retroactive, like, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting your kid because your kid's not going to want to have anything to do with you. You're hurting your previous partner that you can never have any connection with because you traumatized the fuck out of the person. Now they don't want to have anything to do with you. It's such a weird, like, I don't know, like almost a pattern. Maybe it's like almost like a part of human brains, like in the back of the head. That caveman
yeah,
dominant side where there doesn't seem to be any logic. There's no conscious thought that goes into the process. Because I think if you think about what you're doing, you'd be like, this is not a great idea.
yeah. But they don't think about it because it's not about, for them, the focus is on who I want to have. And here's the thing, just to take you back, I went through the situation actually 10 years ago when I was separated with my children. I got them back now, but I was married and then I went through a divorce. Here I am in Europe, and I went through a divorce. And my ex-husband, what shocked me was in 2021, did exactly the same thing. So now I'm here in Europe. It's a white man's land, so to say, and he knows what I went through and what I experienced, and he goes and do the same fucking thing. And I still remember in 2021, I was not even in court. It's kind of like the decision was made even in my absence. I was not even needed to be there. So it took
Nuts.
me, like, I experienced the dark night of the soul, but most importantly, which is also one of the lessons, I could not process the betrayal. And I think for 3 months or something like that, I was completely out of my body because a part of my conscious self could not. I could not imagine my ex-husband doing that because this is the same person who was my rock when I was going through my process with my children, like with the father of my children. He was
Yeah.
there for me. He understood. You know, he was even
It doesn't
angry
feel
and all.
real. Doesn't
Yeah, he
feel
was
real.
even exactly. So it surpassed my conscious mind and went directly into the unconscious. This is why even when it comes to healing, sometimes you can think we are okay, but we are not because some things that you can't process, they go directly to the unconscious, but you see it playing out in your life because even at that time, I realized that when it comes to my business, I was not even making money. I was just like life was. I was far from life. I was here but not here. You understand? Even when it comes to my children, so I had to invest in myself and ask somebody, you know what, this is what I'm going through. And I think as much as my conscious mind is thinking that I'm okay, but when I look at my experiences, I am not okay. You know, so I had to go through a situation where like we expect certain things from people, you know. But especially when it's somebody that you married and all that kind of like when you look at the 5 years, the 10 years, the 20 years that you've been with somebody and you thought you knew that person, but when they show you who they really are, because on the other hand, um, people may claim to love and all that just because you are being what they want you to do or you are abiding by their rules, right? But the moment you step out when it comes to like divorce and kind of things like that, it's kind of like, oh, you're not gonna, I'm gonna show you who I am. I'm gonna put you down. I'm gonna sort of like suck life out of you, you know, to show you who I am. You can be with me, you can be happy, but out of if you're not with me, you can't be happy. And the person who does that is somebody who is hurting. And unfortunately, we live in a world where even when you look at the whether it's the government and all that, it does what it does. Because for me, I would say the pain that I held into even at that time was the judgment of the situation where I'm like, I don't get it. These are the people who are alcoholics. You know, even my like the first father of my children, so he had alcoholic traits. And here it is again with my ex-husband, alcoholic. But on the other hand, he can still run away with things, you know. So I couldn't accept that. Like I couldn't process it. I couldn't accept it. But I had to go through this period where I had to come to terms with this is the world that we live in. But again, when you look at it, again, it still takes us back to what has been. Because even when you're talking about ancestors, they may be biological ancestors, but
Yeah.
it can be we could be dealing with the collective ancestors. You know, where it's
This.
kind of like
Yeah.
things have been this way as women before. Women stayed in relationships or in marriages before, not because they wanted to, because they didn't have any choice. It was a man's world.
You
And
know what? You know what's also really strange about this whole thing is it's something that you don't realize the red flags or patterns until you're out of the situation because from what your experience from the 10 years I'm only guessing, but being out of that experience and looking back at it you're like, oh, there were signs. There were clear
yeah,
signs. Why didn't I see those signs? I mean, there's a variety of reasons why, but it's interesting that we get into that pattern after the effect, not while we're in it.
yeah. The thing is, this is what I always say. I always say this. I don't care how much you are reading because at times I find people who are so absorbed with, I'm gonna find out what triggers narcissists, how to get power over them, and they get sucked into the whole information thing. But information is not transformation, you know, because first thing we attract who we are. You know, when I look at me and my parents or relationship who are attracted, it's quite interesting because it was like after the divorce, I was just sitting in my meditation and I had a voice just saying, what part of you has a problem with this man drinking? So my response was like, I mean, why shouldn't I have a problem with somebody drinking? You know, kind of like, duh, are you stupid or what? But in that moment, I just got this download where I'm getting to understand that I don't have a problem with him and his drinking and his habits and all that. But my inner child is looking for his father. My father had alcoholism. So I'm attracting these people who are broken because it's a part of me that is looking for it. Like that's a love that I know, and a part of me wants that love from the father. When I say these people, maybe they'll love me. I'm still operating from the relationship or the lack of it with my father. That's what I know. So when you're talking about love, it's not about the love that you think you deserve. It's the love that you know that your nervous system craves, right? So that's what I was looking for. And even when it comes to the red flag, we may know the information. I know, but if your frequency is at that level, that's what you're gonna attract. Even though you know what you know, and you may actually people often what I see playing out, people are not able to be present and hear, feel, know what is being communicated because we are listening from our own. All the relationships that I've been in, especially being an intuitive, even before I married my husband, I knew even the time when I was doing those shit vows until death do us part bullshit. And there was a voice in me that was like, "What the fuck are you doing? What are you saying?" You know,
Mm.
and I just knew that I'm lying to myself. And even before, I still remember when I had a conversation with him and I said, "This is not the relationship that I want to be in. This is not the place that I want to raise my children." But the illusion was he's gonna get over this past. I'm gonna help him get over this. I'm gonna fix him. I'm gonna rescue him. That's bullshit. Because when I look at his timeline, indeed, the possibility of that potential, the possibility of who he could be if he quits this pattern is there. But the question is that person open to get over this, right? Is this person really ready to unleash their potential? No, and it doesn't happen even on my timeline, So that's the illusion where it's kind of like at times you know what you know, but then on the other hand, the wound is the one that is making a decision. I'm gonna fix this person. I wanna
Yeah,
be loved. Yeah. So if the wound is making a decision, the chances of you listening to what you are seeing are very low. Or you may know what you know, but you may know what you know isn't like in the mind. But on the other hand, if you are listening to the mind, it's easier for someone to manipulate you. Like, for instance, my ex-husband told me, "Oh, I'm going through this because of my previous relationship. I'm stressed and all that. I'm gonna get over it and stuff like that." And I believe that's nonsense. But no one can make you do anything. Even if you meet somebody, it's kind of like, "Oh, this is what happened. My ex did this to me, and I'm gonna work." The moment somebody says my ex did this to me, so I'm acting like this because of my, that's already like, what the fuck
red
are you talking
flag.
about? When are you gonna take responsibility and accountability for your life and your actions, right? But if you want somebody if you want somebody so badly, you're not gonna listen to what they're saying. It's the same thing with women, where men would be like, "Oh, I'm not in a relationship. I don't want a relationship because I'm coming from another relationship I've been had, so I'm in this process of healing."
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna deal with him and it's gonna heal." No, somebody already told you that I don't want a relationship, but it's like I've been hurt so
Eh,
badly, so I'm gonna be there. Okay, good luck.
I've kind of put myself in this position where I I've kind of veered off from looking for relationships of any kind because right now I'm in a point where I'm trying to figure out my career, figure out what I want to do. Um, I'm also taking care of family. It's not about putting things. I love this phrase, putting things on the back burner. It's about looking at what you can be capable of and what you're. The same thing where I'm going to fix the other person. Are you are you capable of doing that? Are you capable of making your own life, in your instance, also taking care of a family, and among other things? You have to be able to realize that your interaction with other people, and I've had friends for several years where you're going to have times where you drift away. You're going to have times where you get angry at each other and you have massive fights. There are going to be times where you have the greatest of times. There's going to be times where you're going to really bump heads. Does that mean that, well, because of my previous, my ex or whatever, that like that's it, over? There are instances, I'm not going to lie to you, there are instances where you reach a point, you're like, I'm out. And I've had instances like that because Hey, it's Dave, and I quickly just wanted to jump in and say if you've been enjoying the podcast, I'm enjoying this episode, if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'll be so greatly appreciated. Because here's the thing, someone might read that review and make the choice if they want to listen to the podcast. You get to help grow this podcast with us. How fucking cool is that? Let's jump back to today's episode. Personally felt this reminds me too much of the trauma that I experienced with my father. I can't put myself mentally in. It's not healthy. It's like it's like drinking antifreeze. It's like, dude, what are you doing, man? It's like, what? It's cool and it's sweet. It's gonna rip your insides out. You know what I mean?
I love that, and that's very true. And here's the thing, like you said when you are reminded of your relationship with your father. That's it, because we are trans actually. Even when it comes to that attraction, often the love that we crave the most, those are the people that we're gonna also attract and be with, and it's kind of like we're gonna repeat this pattern. And it's very important that you get to be aware of it and realize, I am not ready for a relationship. I get to heal, so that I can attract what I really want, because it is within you. Because here's the thing: if your father, you are him, he is you. Because even when you go to the DNA, you still one person, and this is also
Right.
one person that you looked up to say, are you gonna be proud of me? Are you gonna love me? And here's also the crazy thing that as children, we when we want love, because we want to be loved for us to survive, you know. So it's kind of like at a soul level, you extend. I can see that you are busy, whatever that overwhelms you. I'm willing to take some of your baggage. You do it, but you're not aware of it. It's kind of like you are taking some of that baggage, some of that pain. What you're doing, you're trying to solve a problem. Maybe when I have your pain, you want to have a bit of capacity to love me. You're gonna be there for me. But what you don't realize is you can't do shit with what is not yours. So it's gonna be a baggage that you carry and crave from that baggage, but you're not gonna be able to transmute it because it's not yours. This is why
Right.
healing is vital, because now you get to release what is not yours, so that now you can be you. And then call back your shares as well. Because now it's like I'm gonna be my own person. I don't have to be carrying your stuff. Otherwise, you're gonna continue attracting the same thing, or even being. How about that? When you realize that, now I'm just talking like my father, I'm just behaving like my mother. So then, who is this person? That moment when, if you are aware enough, that moment when you realize that's not me. That's not me. This is my father speaking. you
Right.
know?
I
Yeah,
know. It's all about mentality. I think one of the things that we get ourselves so enthralled and wrapped ourselves around is, particularly even with social media and this creation of utopian lifestyles. You know, you can be successful and just make a decent income. One of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. He's a famous comedian from the seven. I think it was Steve Martin. I can't remember his name. It's one of the guys. He said back in the 70s, no one no one gave a damn of how much money you made. All they cared about is your job cool? Do you like your job? You have a really cool job. And that's all that mattered. What mattered was is that you were doing something that you were passionate about and you love doing it. Because it has an effect. When you do something that you love, that rubs off on other people. Because
yeah,
just like that inner child, when you bump into somebody that, like we're talking about with nursing, and then, for example, you're like a counselor or a social worker, they start talking about their patients. You're like, oh wow, I had this experience with this kid, and we were da da da, and then you kind of bounce off those ambitions and ideas, and that is what creates those relationships. It's
yeah,
not what you can change and what you can make. It's what you can take and what you can create from those experiences, what you can learn from those experiences and from those other
absolutely.
people. Because sometimes they're really fascinating, let's be honest.
Absolutely. And here's the thing again, with my experience going through the trials and tribulations, being separated from my children,
Yeah.
facing different, especially with social workers. And it's quite interesting because I experienced this back home, I experienced this here as well in Germany. So another thing is, most people who are in this fields of helping people and all that, at the core, it's coming from their own wound and they want to do better, right? But on the other hand, if you are still not healed, you may realize that now instead of helping people, it's more like operating from the shadow, right? I still remember like one guy who I was communicating with here. I mean, I'm a healer, so when we communicate, I could tell that he's got a wounded masculine. Like that's the energy that imprinted itself on me the moment you just say hello. So even when I was talking, he was not willing to listen to me because I guess in his mind it's kind of like I don't know what experiences he had because I'm just telling I'm feeling the energetics of it, but he was not willing to listen. More like he was more protective of my ex. That's because he's a man and he's a man, and I don't know what he experienced for him to feel like I don't have to listen to anything that you get to say. This is what I know is right. And even some of the lies that he said, oh, I've been to the child school and this is what I know, like being defensive at all levels, not really getting to the core of the issue and understanding the issue for the person to give a neutral response that will benefit, especially the child. And this is what I mean. I'm gonna challenge you. So what I was asking questions. And if you are wounded and you feeling like, oh, women are like whatever that is, whatever that experience. So when I asked questions for him, it was kind of like the response was kind of like, you can't tell me what to do. I felt like there was racism, there was sexism that was also involved in his responses. So when we don't heal these things, then we're gonna be helping people from this unhealed wound. And I still remember even one of the therapists that I went to, my ex-husband organized it and like at first it's kind of like, oh, this woman has a PTSD, whatever. So I went to see her. I was okay with it. So when I got there, I'm thinking he tricked me saying I'm going for marriage counseling. So I went there. Said, okay, fine. If you're willing to do something about this, I'm on. So when I got there, I realized that he had another narration that oh, she's got a problem, PTSD. Please help my wife, right? So I just told the woman what I was going on. Actually, I was very angry even when I got it. Say, oh, this is the bullshit that he's pulling. So after some time, she said, oh, I realized that you don't really have a problem, but you're angry. And I said, of course I'm angry, and it's okay for me to deal with my emotion and process it because this is exactly what happened. But after some time, I just loved going to her because there was somebody that I could talk to. And after some time, she looked at me and she said, I don't understand. I don't even know what you're doing here. And I said, I need some help sometimes with German papers and all that, and you can help me with that. And she said, I realized that you are so calm when you're dealing with this. And I'm the one who's getting triggered and all that because she has not, like, all this was reminding her of her own experiences that she has not healed. So even the advice that she was giving me, oh, call this department and tell them that you're afraid and all that, and take full custody and all that of the child. And I said, as much as this man is like this, but I still want him to be a part of this child's life. I don't want to take that away from
It,
him.
it's interesting because like even you mentioning this, I'm currently getting a career as an automotive technician,
Mm-hmm.
and automotive technicians are predominantly dominated by males. I mean, predominantly males are in the industry. And it's so funny because when there are females in the industry, even in school, they, I kid you not, the amount of like regulations and restrictions, and you got to be careful with sexual harassment and all these things because they're like, yeah, you're guys. There's a girl walking down the hallway. You're gonna try to like, say, hey, hi, can I get your phone number? It's like you're in school. This is not the place to start hooking up, and it's so like bizarre. You're like, why would you even get to a place like that? Like, why would you even want to put somebody in that predicament? But that's just the way things are. It's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's the environment that you're surrounding yourself with. You're going to
Yeah.
have to learn to adapt to it. You really have to adapt to it because it's dealing with tough ass men that don't take shit.
Yeah,
Oh,
and this is why even when I look at it when it comes to, I always say that unfortunately we live in a world where like this whole patriarchy was still healing from those wounds, and then
yeah.
we come across women needed to prove something for them to be able to be in leadership positions, right? So
Yeah.
by them proving something, somehow it took away the femininity. Kind of like they have to be masculine to survive in the masculine world.
Right. Yeah.
So they never took back the power to say, I can lead from embodying my feminine energy. I can show power from being who I truly am. So it's kind of like we are at loggerheads with men. And this also affects relationships because if you are used, we spend a lot of time at work. If you are used to wearing the masculine mask at work for you to be visible, for you to be respected, that means when you get home, you don't even know how to be with your partner. You don't even know how to be with your children because the masculine, like, because this mask becomes your identity with time. So there's work that needs to be done to say that I can still be myself and exercise my boundaries, and say no and be respected still as a woman. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So as much as the masculine is wounded, the feminine as well is kind of like we detach from who we truly are. And I also know that especially when it comes to the self development or whatever, it's kind of like this whole feminine thing where it's kind of like it's more coming from the mind. Even when it comes to self love, when I look at it, we mentalize self love. We don't know how to be because for me, when you're talking about self love, it's liking even aspects of myself that I've learned to be ashamed of, that I've been, that I have repressed and suppressed. Because often you realize that when we grow up, even as a child, who we end up being is not who we are. We get to be what our parents can accept, right? Or you don't cry. When you don't cry, when something happens and you are in pain and you want to cry, and somebody says, "Come get this sweet," you numb that. So you learn to look for something sweet for you not to feel the pain, and this becomes the addiction, whether it's food or whatever that you take, or somebody cheers you like, "Oh, that's my girl. Girls don't cry," or be a boy, stop being a sissy, be a man and don't cry. We suppress that and all that, and eventually we don't even
Do you
know who we
know
are.
it's a very wild conversation because I've had this before where men predominantly there even today there's a lot of abuse because men are not allowed to show that we are emotional. We do cry. We do have feelings and we do go through. But there's also the aspect inside where to respect the fact that, there's masculinity and femininity. And there are, like, for example, like job positions and things that are more catered towards men and more capable of men and vice versa. And then there's kind of things that can kind of go both ways. But also understanding that just like women have feelings and emotions, just like childbirth, trauma, and among other things, men go through those things too. This division of, well, if you, like you were saying, like a man, you got to stand like this. Oh, and if you're a woman, you got to respect your man. There's certain levels to these things, but forcing that type of opinion and agenda and then restricting emotions, I don't see that to be healthy. I see that to be
No, it's
very
not.
mentally damaging.
Absolutely. And this is why even, for instance, when you look at whether it's corporate world or just in the society, emotional intelligence has been something that has been sort of like it's needed, emotional intelligence and all of that, even when you're looking for a job where somebody who's emotional intelligence and all that. But all this is still something that is done from the mind. It's kind of like I'm gonna learn how to control as in suppress the emotion. I'm gonna learn emotional intelligence to be able to understand other people or see what is happening so I can control them. It's not like being the embodiment of that. Because if you have processed your emotions, you don't need to control them. Because the fear of being overpowered by your emotions is because there's a lot that you have not processed. It's kind of like something bubbling underneath, and it may come out anytime when something happens. So you have to always be in alert. And what that takes away is takes away the ability to be present, the ability to lead, the ability to listen. That's the power that is needed. So it's something that is still missing out there to be able to connect with ourselves at a deeper level and even understand. For instance, women out there who would make fun of men who cry, whether it's like, "Oh, that he was crying, can you imagine?" And I didn't even know what to do with it because he's not a man and all of that. And what are you talking about? And yet, on the other hand, somebody steps outside and say, "I'm looking for emotional."
You know,
I'm
it's
tired
fu-
of taking messages.
I know a couple where her husband, he's very feminine. He's a feminine guy. And he's one of the coolest guys I have ever met in my life. He's straight as hell. He's not gay, but he's just, he's more feminine, he's more emotional and things like that. Does that make them less of a man?
No,
No.
it doesn't.
No.
And
That's just this
this when
person.
I say embody your king, embody your queen, that's what I'm talking about. Because even that also the whole myth that whether it's feminine or masculine it depends on whether you're a man or a woman. It's
Yeah.
bullshit. You can't have parents even when you're talking about your masculine is wounded. First thing you're thinking like, oh my father. But it can be that maybe you're coming from a single headed family where your father was absent and your mother was present, but because of whatever that was happening, he also had to leave from that masculine energy. So still, when that means the feminine is suppressed, and then he's leaving from that wounded masculine, So your masculine is gonna be wounded because you were led by somebody whose masculine is wounded. It could be your mom. So you're always thinking that it has to be the father and all that. It meant the question is who was more dominant, because there are families where the woman is more dominant in the masculine energy, and the father is more feminine. And also it would be maybe the wounded feminine where the father may be feminine but doesn't have a voice, especially if the woman is more masculine, which is there's nothing wrong with that as long as there is a balance, where you get to respect, hear somebody out. When there's a balance, it's kind of like if the woman, because the opposite attract. So if you are more masculine, kind of like a dominating energy, you may attract the man who is more feminine, and it balances everything out. If you know how to hold space for yourself and hold space for each other,
Yeah,
it
like
can
like a
still be a
almost like a
well
scale.
functioning. Yeah, it's more a well functioning family, even though the woman is more masculine. And when I talk about embodying our queen and our king, it's just that. Are you present enough to hold space for the other partner? Because it all starts with you holding space for all parts of yourself, right? When you say, I want an emotionally available partner, are you emotionally available? When you want to be respected, are you respecting yourself? It starts all with us. We can't get what we don't have. We can't give what we don't have. You know, so when we are there holding space for all our aspects, integrating all our aspects, then we are able to receive that. Because at times it's not even we don't even have the ability to receive when the feminine is wounded. You don't have the ability to receive. You don't even know how to
Right.
receive. Yeah.
It's interesting because, this whole conversation kind of all ties back into that part of your inner child. Because yes, we are very much, carbon-based creatures, and we do live on this planet, and we do live in communities where in many ways we've had to really rely on that inner child, because the way that we've created cities, the way that we've created jobs, the way that we've created so many different things is that idea and ingenuity that comes from both sides, using femininity, masculinity, female and male, and using all of those components together created some of the greatest minds and geniuses that we know of today.
Yeah.
And again, like, there is that fear of your inner child, like, oh, you're being a dream thinker, you're not being realistic.
Oh yeah.
I have a hard time hearing I hear the negative side, but the positive side weighs out more than the negative, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the negative side is I mean that's just the conditioning where we diminish the presence, the knowledge, the power, the ability of the child, right? So even when you look at all these imaginative aspects of ourselves, it's something that is subtle just from childhood to say, oh,
Yeah.
you are dreaming, even when it comes to connection with the other world, like the other realm. When you start as a child, when you start sharing all these things, kind of like, oh, that does not exist, oh, there's no, we don't listen to the inner child at all. But when it comes to thriving, especially in these times of change, we need that curiosity which comes with the inner child. Even when it comes to the creativity, it still the inner child, right?
Yeah.
And I truly, this is what I know to be true, that the inner child is a part of us that still holds the code to our vision. The inner child is still the part of us that remembers what it came here to be, do, and have.
Yeah.
So if it hasn't still saved, which it comes from when we are embodying that sacred masculine, we create a safe space for the inner child to be seen, to be heard, to be known, to express itself through us. But if the masculine is wounded, there is no structure. It doesn't feel safe for us to allow who we are to come through. It doesn't feel safe for the feminine to bring in the inspiration and the aspiration that needs to come through. So all this
Right.
other aspects, when we're talking about wholeness, is you embodying all of you and bringing in that imagination, because everything exists in the mind before you can see it in physical form. It starts with an idea. So how much of you are you allowing to go there and bring in this inspiration that is coming through? Or it's gonna be like, oh, you're just doing too much. That's not how it's done in our family. No one ever did it. But what if you're
Yeah.
the first person who has to bring that through? You know?
Right. Yeah. 100. Yeah. It's so. It seems complicated, but it really isn't. It really is just a matter of seeing what works and what doesn't, and not continuing the same mistakes over and over again. Um, I was gonna ask you. I know that you have a YouTube channel, which by the way is amazing. Whenever there's YouTube, there's more opportunities. For example, for content, I know that you offer a coaching. You offer a course on your website. Do you want to just kind of explain a little bit about like your social media, your website, and kind of the work that you've been doing?
Yeah. I offer this actually as much as I can talk about coaching, but at the core of my work is healing. I'm a
Hmm.
human MRI psychic surgeon. So when I work with people, first thing is kind of like scanning through the body to see what is going on, what is interfering with what they desire. I step into people's auric fields to see what is going on at the spiritual, metaphysical, and physical level. So it makes it more effective because I get to know where the blocks are, where the emotions are stored in the body. And just the pillars of my work, like I say, the thing is to help people regain that freedom of individuality. Because whatever that you get to create it from you being you, not from you being sort of like a shadow of your ancestors or of your family or the society that you're born in. So I step in to see where are you creating from your ancestral, those inherited templates and all that, and you disconnect with that and also bring in whatever that is in alignment with your purpose that's gonna help you, because as much as there is a lot of support, there is a lot of wounding at the same time. So at times people will just like, oh, my sisters are gonna support me. What is that supporting you from the wounded perspective that is going to limit you? Because anyway, it doesn't matter whether you want money or you want to connect to your spiritual gifts, whatever that you want, relationships and all that, and you're asking for help, the help will come through. But the question is, who is bringing the help? If someone who had businesses before and they were successful and something happened and they lost everything, a part of them is kind of like, there's no point. What's the point of
Right.
trying to be successful in business if you're gonna lose everything? What's the point of being in a relationship if you're gonna end up being hurt or maybe your partner dying because they experienced that? So they're trying to protect you from their own perspective. So it's very important that you get to work on this, heal this, but it's also helping them and call in those who have mastery so that they can support you from the highest level rather than limit you. So freedom of individuality is the first thing that people get to connect with. And another thing is I call it magnetic confidence, activating that magnetic confidence. And you can't have that magnetic confidence when you are going through life with that conviction if your inner child is not on board. So go
Right.
back and integrate the inner child, heal those experiences that you had. And another thing is the sexual sovereignty, which is connecting with your sexual energy, embodying your sexual sovereignty. Because a lot of people, as we started talking about, people being in relationships and being penetrated while their bodies were not ready, while they are not emotionally connected, that causes trauma in the body. And whatever that you get to crave, whatever that you get to give birth to, it's through your body. Your body is what is here to experience this lifetime. And when your body is in that trauma, it doesn't feel safe, you don't feel supported, you're gonna sabotage yourself. You're gonna procrastinate because your body is not in on board with whatever that your mind has. Because what I've realized in the self development world, people more empower the mind, but they leave the body out. It's kind of like I'm gonna work on my mindset. The work on the mindset, fill it with information. It's kind of like now the head gets to be so big and the body is, you know, so you don't take consideration of your body. It's like your whole identity, because your whole identity is that tri-wave consciousness, your mind, body, and heart, your child, your inner child, your feminine and the masculine energy. So when they are
Right.
whole, you are all in alignment. You are whole. You are all in that mission. Otherwise, your mind and telling you this is what you gotta do, which often is coming from either ego or fear. Because you think that when I have this, then I'm gonna be respected in the society, and whatever that you think you're gonna get from that, which is all coming from the ego, coming from limitation, it's coming from the outside influences, it's external. And that is not sustainable as well if you are coming from there. But when you're coming from within, you get to follow what is truly you, what turns you on. This is where the sexual energy is coming from. What is it that turns me on? What is it that I truly desire? And that I
Right.
think is helping people to be in the body, because people may have done a lot of work. As I hear at times when people come to me, they're like, oh, I've spent a lot of money, I've done a lot of work and all that. And true, yes, they have. But at times you realize that they have done a lot of work, but they are not in the body. And I would say 90% of the world's population is not in their body. So people are
Oh, that's
doing
a
the
big
work.
number.
Yeah, people are doing the work, but they are disconnected. Even when it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to connect to the angels, it's kind of like, it's still from here. But whatever code that you get to bring, you get to be anchored, grounded, be here on the planet for you to receive the code that you are bringing through. So at times people are doing the work, but they are not in the body. And people leave the body for many reasons because of trauma. Like I say, they may have experienced some trauma, and because it was uncomfortable, even when it comes to pain. It's hard for someone to say, I'm feeling pain and be in the body. It's kind of like the best way to survive this is for me to be out of the body. And we live in a world where, whether you are depressed or whatever, you want to go to the doctors and they will give you some medication and then you suppress the pain. But yet the pain is something that is telling you that something is not in alignment here. So the more you can be in it, be with it, the more you can transmute it. But people do not know how to do that. This is why a lot of people are out of that body, kind of like they are running away from themselves. And the question
Right.
is, when you run away from you, who's going to occupy your body? There are also negative entities. When you leave, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to take this space. And all these things, whether it's negative entities that maybe, whether it comes but a lot of people have got entities as well. It's because of the disconnection from their body. So you start feeling all sorts of things, thinking all sorts of thoughts, yet they are not yours. But you don't know. You're thinking it's you who is hating yourself, who is saying all this. And there are people who, even when it comes to their life, they're being influenced by negative entities or kill yourself, do whatever. It's not them. It's somebody else. And funny
Right.
enough, I was with another client not so long ago who she's here in her 30, I don't know, 30 plus years. But when I connected with her, the father was more dominant in her mind. Kind of like whatever that she perceives through life, however that she sees, however that she's talking to herself, it's through the father's eyes. And the father was critical, and that means that's how she's experiencing herself. It's not her, but it's her father who's dominant in her field, right? So I help
Right.
people to who they are in truth. So it's a 12-week program. There is a good program and a one-on-one program that's like the process that I take people through. And they emerge differently. Financial wise, it also changes because we clear the poverty consciousness that they were born into, with scarcity and lack. And there's some people like their gifts get intensified and like they get to have that clarity of what their gifts are. Some people they get to kind of like it opens a lot of opportunities and possibilities that you didn't even know existed. And it
Right.
started trying because I got a message even like last, I think it came through at around 2 a.m. from somebody who was like, oh my God, I wake up at 3 or 4. And when I wake up at that time, I stay up and meditate, and there's a lot of things that are coming through for me. And this is somebody who went through abuse at an earlier age, and she lived her life through being disconnected, like sexual abuse. And like now, this year, she gave herself a gift at 50 years say, I want to connect to myself deeply. And she
Right.
experienced having her daughter going through that same trauma that she experienced. Because when we don't heal something, we are living it to our children or our grandchildren, right? So it's beautiful to see somebody who say, I'm feeling whole in my body. I'm connected and I can receive this guidance that is coming through for me. So that's the
Yeah.
process that I take people through.
Well, yeah, I like it's a very it's a very direct way to healing. It's basically seeing the problem and visualizing what are the steps necessary to be able to better yourself. You have a YouTube channel, you have a website. What are your social links as well as the website?
Yeah. My social media is basically Gao Motsemme, and
Mhm.
the website is gaomotsemme.com as well. And I would say you can find everything in my website. I also I share a link where you can book a call, but somehow I'm changing things a bit because of the nature of my work. When I step into people's oracles, I'm already starting to work on them. But again, I can't go as deep as I need to. So kind of like because they have not fully said yes to themselves. I kind of like it's kind of like a lot of stuff. I get so pulled into a lot of stuff, and then someone will be like, "Well, I'm gonna think about it." So I've changed things lately to say, if you book a call for a breakthrough call that orgasmic clarity, it's only when you are committed to your goals and you need to find out about my existing courses. Otherwise, I'm offering a 1 hour sessions. I haven't offered them. I'm just giving it a try for now to see how that is gonna go. But I don't want to do a breakthrough call if somebody's not willing to say yes to themselves, because it also I'm holding into things that I should not be holding into. It's dangerous to step into people's what it's called, because some
Right.
people have got dark energies and all these entities and all that. So if someone is not open, they're just coming through because they heard that it's a free clarity call. Some people receive healing from that. The people have had breakthroughs from that for years. Wow, it's quite interesting. 7 15 years, people have been telling me, don't do this breakthrough calls for free. And I've held into it. Even my team have been, visual team have been saying that. But lately, I was just like, to hell with this breakthrough calls. It's not for me. I want to do a breakthrough call with somebody who has experienced my work and who is ready to decide and say yes to themselves to step further. Otherwise, on my website, you'll find a link. There is you get an understanding of my work, and if you are committed to 4 8 or 12 weeks, then book a call. If not, just book an hour session, and let's do that.
Okay.
Because it also gives a lot of people an advantage of getting to experience what I'm talking about. So I'm not
Yeah.
doing that breakthrough call for everyone unless you are committed to
You
yourself.
have to
It also
be
gives me energy.
you have to be willing to be committed. I totally agree with that. The thing is that if you want to hear another person, you have to be open. And open does not mean halfway, a quarter, or just a little. It means you have to be open completely, because that's generally how the process works. And it's up to you if you want to be able to take that and to take those next steps. I'll leave the link to your website below. I'm assuming they can also find a link if they do want to do the one-on-one call through your website. Yeah,
Yeah, everything is there.
everything is there. I love that. It
Mhm.
makes everything so easy. It's just one little click. So don't tell me you're lazy. You can't find it. It's right there, black and white. Very simple. Um, Otherwise, I mean, I have to say it's very difficult to have very deep conversations, but it's more eye-opening when you talk about those difficult things and really get a clear view and perspective, because not everything is cut and dry. It's not black and white. It's not pointing the finger, well, because of that, that's the problem. You have to really look at it clearly for what it is, plain and
I love, I
simple.
love, I love that. Yeah, and deep conversations are also it's something that we need, like even in intimate relationships and all that. Otherwise, you're gonna be assuming, and somebody's assuming, and you kind of like they're bumping into each other but not knowing each other. Because I believe we are deep people. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of us to be known, us to know ourselves, and also for our partner to find who we are. And when it comes to relationships, I always say it's beautiful when you are always curious. I'm willing to find who you are for the rest of the time I'm going to be with you. It's kind of like, it's
Right.
not like, oh, I know my partner. No. At the moment you say, I know my partner, you are done with that relationship.
Hmm.
You get to be curious, willing to know more, asking questions, sharing your fantasies and everything. Then the relationship gets to be more, it gets to be more interesting. It gets to be more, it's lovely in so many ways. It's not like, oh, I just know all this thing. Because we don't know ourselves. But we get to know more. The more we put ourselves out there, the more we step out of the box, we know more about ourselves. And that
Right.
is when you are connected to you. Because when you are not connected to you, you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to be who you are not. And that means people will never get to know you. You'll never get to know you.
Yeah, it's very much it very much comes up to, well, what do you have planned for the future? So what I what I what I have to say to that is, it's just be just be ready. Just make sure that if you're not ready, that's fine. You don't have to be overpacked or over ready. It's very much just like leave it living in that flow. My apologies. I forgot to ask you, how do you pronounce your first name?
That's how,
How?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I always get, because I've had other people that are from like South Asia. They also have like GAO. Like I know somebody that's like I think Vietnamese or Philippine, and it was like Gao or Gay or I can't even remember. I come from a Moroccan culture where half the names you can't even pronounce. You know, it's just like throw in a random like cuff in there and a rolling R, and you're like, you know what I'm talking about.
I,
Uh,
I tried I tried to learn Arabic sometime. I mean, I'm still there, but it's quite interesting. But at the same time, yeah, challenging. That time I was like, I'm done with this, and then I come back again.
it's a hard language.
It
Uh,
is.
but so yeah, if you want to find inner freedom, and all of your information on the website below. If you want to check out more of Lost in the Groove, you can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Lost in the Groove Pod. So with that, this has been great. This has been fun. We hope you got some good information, some interesting information, and stay wild. Don't do anything stupid, but stay wild and have
I
fun.
love that.
All right. Thank you so much, Hal. You have a great day. Bye, everybody.